The Pope Lick Monster, Kentucky's deadly railroad cryptid, a goat-legged creature, lures victims onto an abandoned trestle where trains still run, leaving a trail of documented fatalities. 15 miles east of Louisville, Kentucky, a rusted railroad trestle spans Pope Lick Creek in the quiet Fisherville area of Jefferson County. The structure stands nearly 100 feet above the creek bed, a skeletal monument of iron and timber that carries Norfolk Southern freight trains across a wooded ravine. For decades, this trestle has been the epicenter of one of the most dangerous cryptid traditions in American folklore, not because of the frequency of sightings, but because of the documented human fatalities associated with those who come searching for what waits there. The Pope Lick Monster. The creature described in this tradition stands approximately 6 feet tall, a hybrid entity combining human and goat anatomy in a configuration that witnesses describe as both deliberate and grotesque. The being possesses a muscular humanoid torso atop goat legs that end in hooves. Its face carries deformed features that blend human and caprine characteristics. The entity is not merely observed from a distance, as with many cryptid encounters. According to the tradition documented by regional researchers and preserved in multiple generations of local testimony, the Pope Lick Monster actively lures individuals onto the railroad trestle through methods that witnesses describe as hypnosis, vocal mimicry, or an unidentified form of compulsion. What distinguishes Pope Lick from countless other American cryptid traditions is the verifiable consequence of belief. Multiple people have perished on the trestle across several decades, struck by trains while searching for the creature. The deaths are documented in news reports, police records, and medical examiner files. Whatever the ultimate nature of the entity, whether genuine anomalous being, psychological phenomenon, or cultural construct that creates its own danger, the Pope Lick Monster possesses something most cryptids lack: a body count. The tradition emerges from the broader Appalachian cryptid landscape of Kentucky, a region rich in folklore concerning creatures that occupy liminal spaces between the natural and supernatural. The Goatman archetype appears in various forms throughout American folklore, from Maryland's Goatman to Texas variations, but the Pope Lick entity carries a specific geographic anchor and behavioral pattern that separates it from generic legend cycles. The creature is bound to the trestle, to the specific crossing over Pope Lick Creek, and its documented method of danger involves luring victims into a situation where conventional physics, a moving train on an active rail line, completes the fatal encounter. David Domine, a Louisville journalist and researcher of regional folklore, has documented the Pope Lick Monster tradition within the context of Louisville's urban legend landscape. His work preserves testimony from multiple generations of residents who recall warnings about the trestle, stories passed from older siblings to younger ones, cautionary tales that accompanied adolescence in Jefferson County. The consistency of the tradition across decades suggests a stable cultural transmission rather than a fleeting panic or isolated rumor cycle. The trestle itself becomes a character in the documented encounters. Built to carry freight trains across the ravine, the structure offers no pedestrian walkway, no margin for error. When a train approaches, individuals on the trestle face limited options. Attempt to outrun the locomotive to either end of the span, press against the outer support beams in hope the train clears them, or jump nearly 100 feet to the creek bed below. Each option carries significant risk. Each option has been attempted. Not everyone survives the choice. Regional investigators examining the Pope Lick phenomenon document a pattern of deaths and injuries on the trestle beginning in the mid-20th century and continuing into the present era. The fatalities occur with enough regularity that local law enforcement and Norfolk Southern Railroad have implemented increasingly strict trespass policies. Warning signs mark the approaches to the trestle. Fencing has been installed and reinforced. Patrols monitor the area, particularly during periods when the legend experiences renewed attention through media coverage or social media sharing. yet people continue to go. The documented accounts describe multiple mechanisms through which the creature allegedly lures victims. Some witnesses report hearing their names called from the darkness of the trestle, voices that sound like friends or family members beckoning them forward. Others describe a compulsion that bypasses rational thought, a magnetic pull toward the structure that overrides safety concerns and trespass warnings. Still, others report seeing the creature itself on the trestle or in the woods surrounding the creek, positioned in ways that draw the curious onto the span in pursuit. Independent investigators examining the tradition note the psychological complexity of a cryptid that functions through luring rather than direct confrontation. Unlike creatures documented as attacking humans in wilderness settings, the Pope Lick monster operates through a more subtle mechanism. It creates the conditions for danger rather than serving as the direct agent of harm. The train becomes the instrument of fatality, a mundane and entirely explainable force that nonetheless serves what witnesses describe as the creature's predatory pattern. The cultural impact of the tradition manifests in documented ways beyond the fatalities themselves. In 1988, Louisville filmmaker Ron Schildknecht produced The Legend of the Pope Lick Monster, a short horror film that dramatized the local legend for regional audiences. The film's existence demonstrates the tradition's cultural rootedness in the Louisville community, its recognition as a distinct local narrative worthy of artistic interpretation. The production preserved elements of the tradition as understood in the late 20th century, creating a timestamp for how the legend functioned before the internet era transformed folklore transmission. Researchers documenting the Pope Lick case note the unusual convergence of folklore and public safety policy. The trestle has been officially closed to pedestrian traffic for decades, specifically because of monster-seeking fatalities. Warning signs reference both trespassing laws and the danger of active train traffic. The creature, whether genuinely present or not, has prompted documented administrative and legal responses that typical cryptid accounts never generate. This creates an unusual research situation where the cultural phenomenon has produced verifiable institutional reactions preserved in public records. The deaths continue periodically despite warnings and barriers. In recent decades, multiple individuals have perished on the trestle while seeking the creature or filming content related to the legend. Each fatality generates news coverage that reinforces the tradition while simultaneously serving as a warning against the exact behavior that keeps the legend alive. The paradox feeds itself. Media attention attracts curiosity seekers, some of whom underestimate the danger of the trestle, and the resulting tragedies generate new media attention that reaches new audiences. Those familiar with the territory surrounding Pope Lick Creek describe an atmosphere that shifts as one approaches the trestle. The ravine creates a natural acoustic chamber where sounds distort and echo in ways that can disorient visitors unfamiliar with the terrain. The height of the trestle, combined with the narrow spacing of the railroad ties, creates visual vertigo for those attempting to cross. Trains approach with less warning than individuals expect, the curve of the track and the ambient noise of the creek masking the sound of locomotives until they are dangerously close. Whether these environmental factors fully explain the fatalities or whether something else operates in the area remains a matter of interpretation. Researchers note that many of those who have perished on the trestle were aware of the danger, aware of the train schedule, and aware of the risks associated with crossing. The question becomes whether the tradition itself, the cultural pull of the monster legend, creates a motivation strong enough to override survival instinct, or whether the reports of compulsion and luring reflect a genuine anomalous phenomenon that cannot be explained through conventional psychology. The Pope Lick monster cannot be removed from its territory through any conventional means. Unlike cases involving specific locations that can be demolished or modified, the trestle remains an active component of freight rail infrastructure. The creature, whether physical entity or cultural force, persists in the tradition and in the continued risk The trestle represents to those who approach it seeking answers. The most effective safety measure has been deterrence, the attempt to prevent the trespass that brings individuals into the danger zone. Yet deterrence requires constant reinforcement against the persistent human curiosity that the legend generates. Each generation discovers the tradition anew. Each discovery prompts some percentage of individuals to test the boundaries, to see for themselves what might wait on the trestle over Pope Lick Creek. The legacy of the Pope Lick monster holds significance in cryptid research because it represents one of the few American cryptid traditions with documented human fatalities directly associated with the creature's reported behavioral pattern. Whether the monster causes these deaths through genuine supernatural luring or through the motivated trespass of believers, the cultural and practical consequences remain identical. People have perished. Families have lost members. The tradition carries weight measured not merely in testimony, but in lives ended on an iron trestle above a Kentucky creek. The case challenges researchers to consider where folklore ends and genuine danger begins, and whether that distinction ultimately matters when the consequences are documented in medical examiner reports and news archives. The Pope Lick monster, whatever its ultimate nature, operates at the intersection of belief and physical reality in ways that make it one of the most dangerous cryptid traditions in American folklore. If you found this case compelling, subscribe to Vanishing Roads for more documented paranormal investigations from around the world. This story was created with AI assistance based on documented case files. All events reference real investigations and reported incidents.